Hey guys, my name is Julie. Welcome back to my channel. I am super excited for today's video because I've been wanting to do this for like a couple months now. We are going to be reading vampire books for the week, basically. We are planning to read for today, not today, this video. In this video we're planning to read Carmilla, A Dowry of Blood, Dracula, and An Education in Malice. Not in that order. We're starting with Carmilla. But I'm super excited because some of these are classics and then other ones are like retellings or reimaginings, and I just like feel like it's the perfect time in the time of October to get into vampire reads. And so I'm really hoping I'm gonna enjoy all of these. I mean, spoiler alert, I'm filming this after because I guess I deleted my clip. However, we're gonna pretend I didn't. So we are going to be starting with Carmilla by Joseph Sheridan Le Fanu, the Clockworks edition specifically, because this edition has footnotes, it has illustrations, and it has an introduction by the editor Carmen Maria Machado. And in this introduction, she's basically telling everybody like a fictionalized accounting of where Joseph Sheridan Le Fanu got this story, and it's kind of playing off Carmilla itself, because in the introduction she's telling us that he like basically stole this story from letters and from like an accounting that was like an actual person, but it's not real. It's just fictional and it's fun. Like I don't remember the term, but it's like a fictionalized introduction. And so in this introduction, we are getting kind of like commentary on like the story in general, and she's also telling us like you should go into this book knowing that it's a cautionary tale because it was written in like 1870 or something like that, like a long time ago, and the author himself was like homophobic. And so even though this is like a lesbian vampire story, it is very much written like a cautionary tale, and she wants everybody to know that going in. However, if you do not know what Carmilla is about, it basically is following this girl. Her name is Laura. She is kind of like secluded. She lives on this big piece of land with her father. One day her father tells her that this girl that was supposed to come stay with them, I think it was like her cousin or something, that she's never met, but she's kind of lonely, so she wants like a companion, and that companion was supposed to come stay with her, but it turns out that she died. So she's like very upset, but then something happens and this carriage like kind of like flips near where they're talking outside. And so they go check it out, and it's like this lady, her daughter, and the father offers the daughter to stay with her while the mother goes on this trip, because she's like, oh, I'm going on this trip to far away. And then he was like, well, my daughter wants like a companion, like she can just stay with us until you return from your trip and then you can come pick her up. And she agrees, and she's like, hey, so like my daughter's a little weird, she does weird stuff sometimes, she's like ill. And the father's like, oh, okay, it's fine. And then Carmilla ends up moving into their manor, and just weird stuff starts going down because Carmilla is actually a vampire. And so just a lot of weird stuff starts going down, and then there's like this interesting dynamic between Carmilla and Laura throughout this book, and it's kind of building up to that, and then it's just going from like whenever Carmilla starts living with them, and then throughout all the events of things that happened while she was living with them up until the end. So that's basically all I can say about this. I really don't know how else to describe the plot because that's basically it, but I am just gonna start reading this and I will give you guys my thoughts when I'm done with it. Alright guys, so I did finish Carmilla last night, so let's talk about it. Overall, I don't really know how to feel about this. It was definitely quick and fast-paced and super easy to get through. I think that the writing was super easily digestible, especially for something written in like the 1870s. However, I didn't like love it. I think there's definitely things that could have been built up better. However, I don't really know how to talk about this because it's not like a book written in the 2010s. Like this is a book written in 1870 and it's a classic. So I'm like not really sure how to articulate the way that I'm feeling about the way that things were built up. It's kind of following just Laura's reminiscing of Carmilla's visit whenever she came to stay with them, and like kind of just the events that happened and where it went from there. And I did think it was really entertaining for like what it was, but I was expecting a little bit more out of the romance itself, because people market this as like a vampire like lesbian story, and it's like this huge like big whirlwind romance. However, I didn't like read it like that because it is written more as like a cautionary tale against homosexuality, and because of the time that it was written and like the views of the author, that's how it was like read in my opinion. And we obviously learn that like in the introduction by Carmen Maria Machado in this book, that it's kind of written more as a cautionary tale and not as like a lesbian love story. which is kind of like how it was marketed to me in some aspects. I'm not really sure why. I think it was like more just like reclaiming this as like something that's not a cautionary tale and more just like a love story or like a tale of like sensuality. I don't know. I don't really know how to describe this. Like, I would recommend this book. I'm not gonna rate it because I don't rate classics, but I just feel like it was a good time. It was a very quick read, but like you also have to be aware of like the things that this guy is like trying to imply and like doubt that is trying to be said. I don't know. And that's something you need to be aware of reading this. However, I don't really know what else to say. I feel like this is not like a good review. Like, I feel like this is just something you have to experience for yourself. I think this edition specifically was very nice because there are footnotes, both geographic locations and like things that added to the story. I didn't really care for the geographic locations, but like, for example, there was this one passage talking about like a secret passageway, and then the footnote was kind of like a fictionalized version of like a story that happened in this passageway that kind of added to like the overall creepy ambiance of the book, and I really enjoyed that. There were also a lot of illustrations that I enjoyed while reading this book. I feel like they showed up well on Kindle Vision, but I've also seen them in paperback and they were nice in that too. So both of those aspects plus the introduction like definitely added to like my enjoyment of this book. I didn't like dislike this book. I think I just expected more, and that's really all I can say. But it did leave me wanting to read more like sapphic vampire novels. So I picked up An Education in Malice by S.T. Gibson. This is like a Carmilla reimagining, but it takes place in a dark academia setting. It takes place at this all-women's college called St. Perpetua's in Massachusetts, and it's kind of like a story of Carmilla and Laura, but as like academic rivals and in a contemporary setting, obviously. But it's like a reimagining, and we get both of their point of views in this book, so it is very interesting. I'm not really sure where it's going right now. It says that as their rivalry blossoms into something far more delicious, Laura must confront her own strange hungers. Tangled in a sinister game of politics, bloodthirsty professors, and magic, Laura and Carmilla must decide how much they are willing to sacrifice in their ruthless pursuit of knowledge. So I'm interested to see where this goes. We haven't gotten too much background so far. We've kind of just gotten Laura going into this college and going into the program of like poetry. It's kind of like an exclusive program, but like I don't know how exclusive it's gonna be. Like, it's kind of reminiscent of like The Secret History or If We Are Villains, in the sense that there's like this group studying one particular thing with like one professor that's kind of guiding them through this. And I feel like in that sense, I'm really enjoying it. I feel like S.T. Gibson's writing is like building this up to be a very interesting dark academia tale. I don't know. I'm enjoying it so far. I don't really know what else to say, but there is definitely like a dynamic between Carmilla and the professor that is like weird. Like, it's like a teacher-student relationship that's going on, and we haven't gotten too much background on it so far, but it is giving like very vampiric themes. I don't know. I am just gonna continue reading this, and when I have like more of an idea what this is about, then I'll talk to you guys. But like, basically just know that it is a Carmilla reimagining in a dark academia setting, and it's dual point of view. So yeah, I will see you guys whenever I have more thoughts. Hi y'all, I'm going to read you a quote that I just feel like perfectly encapsulates like the dynamic between the professor, Carmilla, and Laura. So this is in Carmilla's point of view. She said, "I was her morning glory." She's talking about the professor. "Her silver spoon, her prize mare. I devoted myself entirely to a life of letters under her tutelage, bringing every last drop of emotion I had into my poems. And oh, how she praised me. Whether she was lauding me in front of a classroom or whispering encouragement to me in private, I was always her little star. Our spirits were kindred. She would tell me, linked by art and blood in a chain no man's disapproval or God's judgment could break. And then the Sheridan girl arrived. In one fell swoop, my station as a favorite became precarious. In class, I maintained a cool demeanor, but in private, I fumed over her very existence. I lay in bed at night, my face hot with rage, imagining smashing her fingers in the door of Delafontaine's office or tripping her up on her way to class. Besting her wasn't enough." Ooh, I'm eating it up. Okay, so we just got to like a turning point in the story, and I'm honestly not even sure like how to update you, because like I feel like I can't even say like the general census of like what's happening because it's like a total spoiler. But so far I feel like the writing is just very easy to comprehend and read, but it's also like nice. Like, I really like just like the way that the information is like being told to us. It's It's in first person, and I usually feel like I prefer third person, but the way that this is written, I'm enjoying it, and I'm liking their dynamic. Like, it was very, like, rivals to lovers, and I feel like they're, like, kind of, like, warming up to each other at the point that I'm at, and I'm really enjoying their dynamic, and, like, I just really want them to get together. Like, I don't even know what to say. Like, I'm, like, 170 pages in, so I'm probably, ooh, I almost lost my page, probably, like, halfway through. I'm really enjoying it. I feel like the dark academia like setting is very entertaining. I feel like we were getting more dark academia, and I'm sure we're gonna get a little less now because we just got like a huge turning point in the book. But from what it was, like it was like more poetry based, so like they're writing poems and like reciting things, and it was just like really like entertaining for like the story and for like the characters and their like dynamic, their relationship. Like whenever they would say stuff or like have a poem about each other, I was like eating it up. Like it's just so, I'm really enjoying this. Like this is really entertaining, and I'm just gonna keep reading it. I'm probably gonna binge it right now if I don't have anything else to do, because as you can tell by my hair, like I've literally just been like chilling here reading it. I'm thoroughly entertained. Oh my gosh, wait, can we? Okay, I'm on page 206. I just remembered the ending of Carmilla, and if this ends, can we reimagine the ending? This is a reimagining. I feel like we're getting foreshadowing, and I don't want it. I'm closing my eyes. I'm not gonna read it. I don't want this to end like that. But I also feel like it'd be really good. What is going on? What is going on? You and I are two sides of the same coin. I'm not sure how we were ever gonna end up anywhere but here. Alright guys, so I did finish an Education in Malice a couple days ago, if I'm being honest. I just didn't like update you guys. So I ended up giving this a 4 stars. I was considering giving it a 5 stars, but like I feel like it had like some 5-star feelings, but then I didn't really love the way that it ended. I feel like the ending is just weird. Like it's weird to describe how it ended because, well, I can't because that'd be a spoiler, but like the ending was confusing. But like I liked the last page, like how it ended I liked, but I didn't like the ending as a whole. I felt like it was kind of weird. I don't know. I definitely thought it was gonna go in a different direction, and it didn't. And I think the other direction that I thought it was gonna go in would have been more tragic, but I would have liked it more probably. I don't know. But I really did enjoy that book. Their dynamic, like it kind of like weaned off of Dark Academia a little bit. I'll just show you like how this book went. This much of the book was like world development and developing the Dark Academia. This much was like yearning. This much was like the plot changed, like something really big happened that influenced where the rest of the story was gonna go. This much was like possession and jealousy and yearning, but also togetherness. And then this was the ending. And I read the author's note, and the author, S.T. Gibson, says that they create the characters before they create the story. Like the characters come to them, and that's why most of the time people feel like they feel so fleshed out. And I definitely agree with that. Like the characters felt very fleshed out, and I really enjoyed reading about both of their point of views because it is a dual point of view book. And I feel like where the book went and how it focused on like possession, especially in like an inappropriate relationship between like a teacher and a student, was very interesting. I would say if you don't like character driven stories and you need like a plot, probably don't pick this up, because this was like plot based at the beginning, but it kind of like there was a plot, but it was also like just vampires, if you know what I mean. Like it literally was just about their relationship, and I personally really loved their relationship, and I wanted to see them get together and see like how the yearning came to fruition, like how everything summed up. So I really enjoyed it, and I really enjoyed reading about them, but I feel like if you don't connect to their romance, you're not gonna like this book. However, I feel like S.T. Gibson did yearning very well, and I am super excited to read A Dowry of Blood now. However, that means we have to read Dracula. And I'm just not in the mood to read Dracula, honestly. I'm reading The Handmaid's Tale, so we're probably gonna start Dracula after that. Honestly, I don't really want to. I'm not in the mood to read it, but I do have the audiobook on Libby, so I'll probably like listen to that while I'm doing other stuff. Maybe like make a new crochet project up to do so I can listen to it while I'm doing something. But like, I don't know. Like, I just don't know. Hi guys. So I tried to read this. I really tried. It's been like a week since I finished An Education in Malice, and I just cannot get into this. I think it's just the point that I'm at right now because I've been reading so many like literary written books. I mean, all books are literature, but you know what I mean? Like slower paced, more difficult to understand wording, I guess. It's not like they've been too difficult to understand, but I feel like I've been reading like a lot more literary books recently, and I don't want to read this. Like, at the point that I'm at right now, I'm just kind of bored with where it's at and like the storytelling. I feel like I would really enjoy this if I read it at the right time, and I don't think right now is the right time. So I am gonna soft DNF this, but we're gonna go over the synopsis anyway. So this follows Jonathan. He is a lawyer, and his boss sends him to the Carpathian Mountains in order to like serve his client Dracula, and Dracula is like very enraptured in Jonathan's life and Jonathan's life back in London, and kind of just London in general. Like, he's very much wanting Jonathan to help him like move there to establish him in London and like basically get his affairs in order. But while while Jonathan is there, he's kind of like noticing a lot of weird things about Dracula, like that he's climbing up walls and sleeping in a coffin, just like stuff that people don't typically do. So he's kind of like weirded out by that, and he's like kind of scared of just the atmosphere that he's living in because it's a very gothic area, and Dracula's not, you know, the best host because he's kind of scaring him and kind of forcing him to do stuff. So we're following Jonathan's like point of view, kind of like in epistolary style, where he's writing these journal entries and writing about what's going on. And then we're also following other point of views. I think it's right now it's like 3 or 4, I don't know, but his like girlfriend, his woman, I don't know what she is to him. It's not like established, but it's like they're established that they're in like a relationship. But it's following her point of view, her friend's point of view, and then a doctor's point of view. There's like a lot of weird stuff going on in London that has to do with like vampires, but they don't know it's vampires, but they're figuring it out slowly. And so it's like kind of following those two like storylines, those two plot points, timelines, whatever you want to call it. And I do think this is a really interesting novel. I think it'd be a really good story to read when you're in the mood for it, but I just am not in the mood to read it right now, and I feel like I've been like forcing myself to pick it up, and I've literally only gotten 30% in a week because I just have not been wanting to pick it up. So I do think I would enjoy this, and I will be coming back to it eventually when I'm in the mood to read it, but right now is not that time. So we're gonna move on. Like I said at the beginning of the video, I really wanted to read Dracula before I read A Dowry of Blood by S.T. Gibson because that book is like a reimagining of Dracula's brides. However, I looked it up, and S.T. Gibson themselves said that this is a book that can be read as like a standalone. Like, you don't need to read Dracula before it because there's only like some Easter eggs that you'll get if you read Dracula before you read A Dowry of Blood. And as a book, A Dowry of Blood is kind of like a very loose retelling of Dracula, or retelling of Dracula's brides. So she was like, you don't need to read Dracula to read it. So I started it. I did start it. I just made it to part 2 of A Dowry of Blood. I keep saying it wrong, but I am really enjoying it so far. It's so fast-paced, and I feel like S.T. Gibson's books, like, are they just always printed this large? Because I feel like that is just abnormally a little bit larger, and I feel like I'm just getting it through it so quickly, and the writing is so interesting. Like, I feel like I am, like, someone who finds epistolary, like, writing very hit or miss. Like, if it's, like, straight letters, I don't typically enjoy it, but I feel like this one is done really well. Basically, it's following this girl. Her name is Constanta. She used to be, like, a medieval peasant, kind of, and at the beginning of the book, her entire city was ransacked and everybody she knows was killed. And she's like kind of at this point dying on the ground, and Dracula kind of like appears, and she's like begging him to save her. She thinks that he's her savior, and he does, and he's like, in return, you will be my wife, you will be Constanta, because her name was not Constanta originally. And so it kind of just goes from there. Like, he turns her into a vampire, and then he kind of like keeps her hidden away. Like, it says on the back, Constanta realizes that her beloved is capable of terrible things, and he is, and we see that it's not like a healthy relationship, and like the dynamic between them is not good. So this takes place in like the form of letters to Dracula once like a huge event has happened, and it's kind of like her recounting, her retelling of what has happened throughout their relationship and like everything that they've experienced leading up to the point that we learn about at the beginning of the book, which I feel like I shouldn't say because I feel like it's a spoiler. But I feel like the formatting of this is really interesting because, like I said, however, I feel like it's really interesting, like the way that it's written. I think I really like enjoy S.T. Gibson's writing, and I feel like even though this is in an epistolary format, in kind of like a letter form, like Constanta is writing it to Dracula, it's in second point of view, and I feel like the way that Constanta is reflecting on everything in the writing is very interesting, and I'm really enjoying it because I feel like it's like I'm reading a story, but it's still in epistolary format, and I feel like it's just really working for me right now. And I'm really enjoying it, and I know that this is like Dracula's Bride's reimagining, so obviously there's multiple of them. It's like a polyamorous relationship kind of dynamic, and every character is bi, from what I've seen S.T. Gibson say online. So at the point I'm at right now, we've only really gotten the dynamic between Constanta and Dracula. However, we're kind of building up more of like the toxicity of Dracula and just everything that he does. So I feel like since the other characters haven't been introduced yet, I can't really talk much about them, but I can talk about like Dracula, and he sucks. So that is like basically all I can say right now. I'm really enjoying the writing. I like Constanta as a character. I really cared about her from like the beginning, and I really enjoyed that because like I feel like characters have been very hit or miss for me lately. Like I literally don't know what is happening. I feel like I was in a reading slump, and like this has just like helped me a little bit because it is very fast paced. It is like pretty short, and the text is huge, and it's just easy to get through, easy to like keep reading about because I'm interested to see where it's going and how we get to that huge like turning point that they talked about at the beginning of the novel. So I'm gonna continue reading this, and then I will talk to you guys when I have some updates. Please, the light is making me look like a literal vampire right now, but we're just gonna ignore that. And I swear my face is not oily, guys, it's just the light. Anyways, we're just gonna go over this review because it is dark, and as you can tell, I need this light on. But it is the next day, and I finished A Dowry of Blood. Why does that keep happening? I really enjoyed this, but I didn't enjoy part 2 onward as much as I thought I was going to. I think I'm gonna land on a 3.75 for this because I did really enjoy the writing. Like I said, it's written like an epistolary, but it's like letters, so it's in second point of view, and it's written to Dracula from the point of view of Constanta, reimagining like, or not reimagining, but like recounting the events that transpired from their meeting whenever he turned her into a vampire up until, I won't say what happened, but I will read the last line on this. It says, "But bonds forged by blood can be broken only by death." If you perchance want to put 2 and 2 together, I'm not gonna say it though because I don't know what's considered a spoiler, and I don't want to spoil this because I feel like you could just read it. But anyways, from part 2 and part 3 onward, we basically met the other 2 of Dracula's brides that we got throughout this book. We met Magdalena and Alexei, I'm not sure. And I started listening to this in audiobook format, and I really enjoyed that. Like more than reading this because it felt more like it was being read to me, and because it's in second point of view, it's like saying like you, and like when I'm reading it, I don't really like absorb the second point of view, but when I was listening to it, I was like, oh okay, yeah, this is being read to me. But nevertheless, I really enjoyed their dynamics. Like I feel like every single character with Dracula and with each other had their different like dynamics, and they were all so different. Like Magdalena, she was like Dracula's second bride. She is very motivated by like politics and just like more academic things. And then Alexei, he's an actor, he wants to be on the stage, he's a very people oriented person. And then Constanta, she's more like kind of reserved, she kind of just wants to protect her peace, and she's kind of like more like, I'll just shrink back and let whatever is happening happen. But also she's the one who sticks up for everybody because she's more of like the motherly figure. She's the oldest one out of all of them besides Dracula, and I just really enjoyed their dynamics. Like I feel like all of them, like I don't really read many like poly relationships, but I felt like this one was really intricate. I could see why everybody loved each other. However, I did feel like some of them, like I feel like the relationship between Magdalena and Constanta kind of like withered over time. I think there was a reason that it happened, but also like I just felt like it kind of like went away a little bit. And so like I did enjoy it, but I didn't like love it as much as I thought I was going to. It was very character driven, very like just following what they were going through in their lives, like as they got older, like as years went by and they had to move between all these different places. And I did think it was like a really interesting time. I would recommend it, but I don't think it was like as entertaining for me personally as An Education in Malice. Like I think I preferred that book, but I really enjoyed Constanza as a character. I think she was my favorite character. There's only really 4 main characters, and this book like focused a lot on like jealousy, toxicity, possession, like An Education in Malice. So maybe that's just something that S.T. Gibson writes about a lot, but I did enjoy it. I, like, again, do think I enjoyed An Education in Malice a little bit more, but I really think both of these were like solid vampire romances. So yeah, I really enjoyed this, 3.75. And that concludes our vampire reading vlog, because I could read another one I have, Cruel Illusions by Maggie Thurston, which is like a fairy loot book that I got a while ago, and it's basically like Caraval meets Buffy the Vampire Slayer. But I, like, when I tell you I'm sick about reading about vampires, I'm sick of reading about vampires, and I really just, like, I'm yearning to start The Priory of the Orange Tree. Like, I need to start it now. So I could start this, but we're not going to in this video. But I might be reading this before October's over, maybe before November's over. I really need to get through more books on my physical TBR, and this is on my October TBR. I mean, my fall TBR. So I need to get through these books. But yeah, that's gonna be the end of the video, because I literally cannot read any more vampire books. Like, I'm gonna burn myself out. So yeah, so I guess we only read 3 of 4 of the books that we were supposed to read. However, I hope you still enjoyed the video. I enjoyed reading these books. It did get me in the mood for spooky season. I am ready for Halloween. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, do whatever you want to do, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye! Why I look like that? Who is that?